In this video, we're going to talk about surface area and volume of cylinders. So here I have a cylinder I created. And one thing that might help us to find the area of the base, lateral area, surface area, and volume of this thing is if we unfold it and kind of look at all the different pieces to it. If you look up here, we have a top to this cylinder. Down here, we have a bottom, and then we kind of have the sides of the cylinder. If you think of a soda can, you got the top and bottom, and then the metal part wrapping around. So to look at this, let's take a peek at a net of the cylinder when we unfold it. And this is something, it's on GeoGebra. I just Googled net of a cylinder, GeoGebra, and you can play with this if you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unfold this. So as I drag this across, it's going to unfold the top and then the bottom. And then it's going to cut it right down the middle. Imagine you're cutting that soda can right down the middle. And it's going to unfold it. And what happens is you get this flat, imagine this is like our flat aluminum that creates the can. You've got this rectangular middle piece and a circle on top and circle on bottom. So once again, I'll fold that back up, unfold it. Got top, bottom, lateral area is that blue part. And that ends up being a rectangle. And if you notice, as I fold this back up, if you notice the top of this rectangle right here, this ends up wrapping around the circle. I'll show you here. And so that ends up being the circumference of that circle, and that's going to come in handy in just a second here. Okay, so I have a net drawn out. And it looks something like this. These circles you could have offset like this. You could have right on top of each other. You could have them at the ends. It doesn't really matter. So let's label what's given to us. They tell us that our diameter of our circle is 10 inches. And they tell us that the height of this cylinder is 8 inches. Okay, and this may not be perfectly to scale, but it should be a rectangle with a circle on top and bottom. So let's start answering some of these questions. They ask us for the area of the base. Well, the base is this circle, and the base is also this circle right here. So you just have to give the area of one of those. And for the area of a circle, you're going to do pi times radius squared, which would be pi times 5 squared, which is 25 pi. And this would be our exact answer, is 25 pi. If you want a decimal approximation, you just take 25 times pi and type that into your calculator. So we'll go 25 times 3.14159. It's close enough. We get 78.54. So if you're looking for a decimal, that's about 78.54. And this would be inches squared. All right, so that's the area of one of these circles, is 78.54 or 25 pi. The lateral area is this center section. This is called the lateral area. That's that aluminum part of a soda can wrapping around the shape. So we know the height of this is 8, and we talked about how the top of this is the circumference. And if you recall, circumference is pi times diameter. The diameter is 10, so the circumference of this is 10 pi. And since we have a rectangle here, we're just going to go base of the rectangle times the height, and that's going to be our lateral area. So we've got 10 pi times 8, and that gives us 80 pi inches squared. So our lateral area is 80 pi inches squared. Or like we talked before, if we want to get a decimal approximation, that is approximately, let's grab our calculator, 80 times 3.14159, 251.33. 251.33 inches squared. Okay, the surface area is all three of these pieces added together. So we would take this piece plus this piece, plus this piece. And the nice thing is we figured all these out. We know this is 80 pi. We know this is 25 pi. And we know this is also 25 pi for the area. So 25 and 25 is 50. 50 plus 80 is 130 pi inches squared. And once again, if we want a decimal approximation, we can type that into our calculator. Let's see, 130 times pi. And we get 408.41 inches squared. And then the volume, the formula for volume is area of the base times the height. And the reason why it's maybe not super easy to explain this, but essentially what you should think is you have a bunch of these slices. And so here I'm just going to do this thing called infinite cloner, and I can take this circle and I can create a new one. So imagine there are a bunch of slices on this cylinder, and this is going to keep going all the way up. And so if you can find the area of the bottom one and multiply it by how many slices there are, well, in this case, there'd be 8 of those. So you do the area of the base times 8 slices, and that would give you the total volume. That's how much stuff this thing holds. So we have the area of the base. That's 25 pi. And I will give myself a little bit of room here. So the area of the base is 25 pi. Times the height, which is 8. 8 times 25 is 200, so this would be 200 pi inches cubed. That would be our exact answer. And once again, if we're looking for a decimal approximation, we can type that in. We get 200 times pi. Oops. 3.14159. I get 628.32. Okay. Inches cubed. So these are cubic inches instead of square inches. This is 3D for volume. Surface area and lateral area is two-dimensional. It's flat. All right, so that is how to find the surface area and volume of a cylinder.